The ice cracked beneath Grisha's feet with a sound like shattering bone, and then the world became nothing but freezing water dragging her down into darkness. She had been running for 3 days straight, ever since the human hunting party had attacked her clan's winter encampment in the northern hills. The memories flashed through her mind as the frigid swamp water swallowed her whole. The screams, the torches, her mother shoving her toward the forest while warriors held the line. Run, her mother had commanded, and Grisha had obeyed like the coward she felt herself to be. At 19 winters, she should have stayed and fought. Instead, she had fled south through unfamiliar territory, pursued by riders who seemed determined to hunt down every last survivor. The swamp had appeared through the morning mist like salvation, a place where horses could not follow easily. She had plunged into the wetlands without hesitation, wading through increasingly deep water until her legs had gone numb with cold. The thin ice covering had seemed solid enough when she had stepped onto it, desperate to reach the far shore where she could see solid ground and tree cover. But the ice had other ideas. Down she went, weighted by her thick winter furs that had kept her alive through 3 nights in the wilderness but now dragged her toward the muddy bottom like anchors. The cold was so intense it felt like fire in her lungs. She thrashed, disoriented, unable to tell which direction led to air. Her hand struck something solid, maybe a submerged log, and she grabbed for it desperately. The current pulled at her, sluggish but insistent. Her vision darkened at the edges. Then something else grabbed her. Strong hands locked around her upper arms, hauling upward with determined strength. Her head broke the surface and she gasped, choking on swamp water and air in equal measure. The hands did not let go. They dragged her through broken ice and freezing water, pulling her bodily toward the shore. She tried to help, to kick her legs, but they would not respond properly. Everything felt distant and fuzzy. Solid ground materialized beneath her as she was hauled up onto a muddy bank. She collapsed forward onto her hands and knees, coughing violently, expelling what felt like half the swamp from her lungs. Her entire body shook with cold so profound it felt like her bones might shatter. Easy, easy now. The voice was male, human, and unexpectedly gentle. Get it all out. That is right. Grisha's vision cleared slowly. She found herself staring at mud-covered human hands planted in the frozen earth beside her own green ones. She followed the arms upward and found herself looking into a weathered human face, perhaps 30 winters old, with brown hair plastered to his head and pale gray eyes that held concern rather than the hatred she had learned to expect. He was soaked through, she realized. He had gone into the water after her. "Can you breathe?" he asked, watching her intently. "Nod if you can." She managed a jerky nod, still coughing. Her tusks ached from the cold, a strange sensation that meant her whole face had gone nearly numb. "Good. We need to get you warm immediately or you will die." He spoke matter-of-factly, already moving. "My cabin is not far. Can you walk?" Grisha tried to stand and made it approximately halfway before her legs gave out. The human caught her before she face planted back into the mud. Without asking permission, he swept her up into his arms, grunting slightly at her weight. She was not small, built solid and strong like all her people, but he managed to lift her nonetheless. "I have got you," he said, already striding away from the water's edge. "Stay conscious if you can." "Talk to me. What is your name, Grisha?" she managed through chattering teeth. Everything felt wrong and distant. The world swam. "I am Phineas," he replied, pushing through bare winter brush with determination. "Phineas Donovan, you are safe now, Grisha. I promise you are safe." She wanted to laugh at the absurdity of it. An orc, safe with a human. But she could not muster the energy. The cold had settled deep into her core, and darkness kept creeping into the edges of her vision. She fought it, clinging to consciousness with grim determination. True to his word, a cabin appeared through the trees within minutes. It was small but well made, logs chinked carefully against winter winds, with smoke rising from a stone chimney. Phineas kicked the door open and carried her inside, into blessed warmth that made her skin prickle painfully. The interior was a single large room, dominated by a fieldstone fireplace where a healthy fire crackled. Furs and hides hung from the walls alongside various tools of a trapper's trade. Phineas carried her straight to the hearth and set her down carefully on a thick bearskin rug. "Your clothes are soaked through and freezing," he said, already moving with efficient purpose. "They need to come off or you will never get warm. I am going to turn my back and tend the fire. You need to strip down and wrap yourself in these." He thrust an armful of furs and wool blankets at her. "Can you manage that?" Grisha stared at him, struggling to make her cold-addled brain work. He was giving her privacy. He was helping her. None of it made sense with what she knew of humans. "Grisha." His voice sharpened. "I can see you are in shock, but you need to do this now. Hypothermia will kill you faster than any prejudice. Undress, wrap up, and get close to the fire. I will make hot tea. You understand?" She nodded slowly. Phineas immediately turned his back, busying himself with an iron kettle and what looked like herbs from various pouches. His movements were deliberately loud, giving her auditory assurance that he was not looking. Grisha's fingers fumbled at the laces of her furs. They were so cold they felt like clubs at the ends of her arms, clumsy and unresponsive. It took 3 tries to work the first knot loose. Her heavy outer coat came off in a sodden heap, then her tunic, equally soaked. Her fingers would not cooperate for the laces of her leather breeches. "I cannot," she whispered, hating the weakness in her voice. "My hands will not work." Phineas kept his back turned. "Tell me what you need." "The laces. I cannot undo them." He was quiet for a moment. "I am going to help you. I will look only at what I must to assist, nothing more. Is that acceptable?" What choice did she have? She nodded, then realized he could not see her. "Yes." He turned, keeping his eyes carefully on her lower half, and knelt beside her. His fingers were far more dexterous than hers despite having been in the same freezing water. He made quick work of the laces, then immediately turned away again. "Finish and cover up." She struggled out of the wet leather and her undergarments, feeling utterly vulnerable. The thick wool blanket he had provided wrapped around her like a cocoon, and she pulled a bare fur over that for good measure. The warmth of the fire began to seep into her skin, painful at first, then gradually more pleasant. "I am covered," she said. Phineas turned back with the kettle, now steaming. He poured dark liquid into a battered tin cup and pressed it into her hands. "Drink slowly. It is hot." The cup was indeed hot, almost painfully so, but her cold hands welcomed it. She lifted it to her lips and tasted something herbal and slightly bitter, with honey sweetening it. The warmth traveling down her throat felt miraculous. Phineas gathered her wet clothes and began spreading them near the fire to dry. Then he retrieved his own dry clothes from a chest against the wall and, with his back to her again, stripped off his soaked garments and changed. Even shaking with cold and exhausted, Grisha found herself noting the efficiency of his movements, the quiet competence. When he was dressed in dry wool and leather, he collected his wet things and spread them out as well. Then he came to sit near her, though not so close as to crowd her. He had his own cup of tea. "How are your hands?" he asked, studying her over the rim of his cup. "And feet?" Grisha wiggled her toes experimentally. They tingled painfully but responded. "They hurt, but they are working." "Good. That means no frostbite yet, probably. Let me see your hands." She hesitated, then unwrapped one hand from around the warm cup and extended it. Phineas leaned closer, examining her green fingers with the careful attention of someone who knew what to look for. His own hands were calloused and scarred from years of outdoor work. The color is good. Movement is good, but they are still far too cold. He set down his tea and reached for her hands with both of his. This might hurt a bit. He sandwiched her right hand between both of his palms and began to rub gently, creating friction warmth. The sensation was indeed painful, pins and needles racing up her arm, but also undeniably helpful. Heat flowed from his skin to hers. After a minute, he switched to her other hand, repeating the process with the same patient care. Grisha watched him work, bewildered. "Why are you helping me?" Phineas glanced up, his gray eyes meeting her dark ones. "Because you needed help. Why else? I am an orc. I can see that. Most humans would have let me drown or killed me themselves." His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "I am not most humans." He returned his attention to warming her hands, his movements methodical. "I live out here alone because I prefer the company of animals and trees to most people. I trap, I hunt, I mind my own business. I do not hold with killing someone just because they were born different. Even though my people have raided human settlements, killed human families." "Have you?" His eyes were steady on hers, direct and searching. "No." "Then you are not responsible for what others have done." He released her hands and reached for her left foot, which he began to rub with the same gentle firmness through the blanket. "There has been blood on both sides of this conflict. Enough to drown in, I reckon. But you nearly drowned in a swamp instead, and I happened to be checking my trap lines nearby. Seemed like the decent thing to do was pull you out." The warmth was spreading through her body now, chasing away the deathly cold. With it came exhaustion so profound she could barely keep her eyes open. Phineas must have noticed because he stood and retrieved another bearskin, which he laid out near the fire. "You need to sleep," he said. "Your body has been through an ordeal and needs rest to recover. You can take my bed." He gestured to a rope frame bed in the corner, piled with furs. "Where will you sleep?" "Here by the fire. I have slept in worse places." At her hesitation, he added, "The door has a bar. You can lock it from inside if it makes you feel safer. Though I give you my word, you have nothing to fear from me." His word. A human's word given to an orc. The world had turned strange indeed. But Grisha found, despite everything, that she believed him. Perhaps it was the cold still making her thoughts fuzzy. Perhaps it was the bone-deep exhaustion. Or perhaps it was simply the quiet sincerity in those gray eyes, so different from the hatred she had seen in the eyes of the men who had attacked her clan. "I believe you," she said softly. Then, because it needed to be said, "Thank you, Phineas Donovan. You saved my life." "You are welcome, Grisha." He returned to his seat by the fire. "Now sleep. We can figure out everything else later." She did not remember crossing to the bed. One moment she was by the fire, the next she was burrowing into the pile of furs that smelled like wood smoke and pine and something else, something distinctly masculine and human. The bed was warm and soft, and she was asleep almost before her head settled into the pillow. Grisha woke to the smell of cooking meat and the sound of quiet humming. Daylight filtered through oiled hides stretched over the cabin's single window, suggesting it was well into morning. She sat up slowly, taking stock of her body. Everything ached, but the deadly cold had been replaced by the more normal discomfort of bruises and sore muscles. She was alive. Phineas stood at the fireplace, tending something in an iron skillet. He had his back to her, still humming tunelessly. The sound was oddly comforting. "Good morning," she said, her voice rough from sleep and swamp water. He turned, and his weathered face creased into a genuine smile. "Good afternoon, actually. You have been asleep for nearly a full day. How do you feel?" "Like I fought a bear and lost." His smile widened. That is about right for someone who nearly froze to death. Hungry, as if in answer her stomach growled audibly. Phineas chuckled and turned back to the fire. Rabbit stew. It will be ready in a few minutes. Your clothes are dry, by the way. I hung them on the pegs by the door. Grisha looked and indeed found her garments hanging neatly. She gathered them, still wrapped in the blanket, and retreated to the far corner of the cabin to dress. Her body protested every movement, but everything worked. When she emerged, fully clothed for the first time since the swamp, she felt more herself. Phineas had set out 2 wooden bowls of stew on the small table near the fire. He gestured for her to sit, and she did, sinking onto a rough stool. The first spoonful of stew was heaven, rich and savory with chunks of tender meat and root vegetables. They ate in companionable silence for several minutes before Phineas spoke again. You were running from something, or someone. It was not quite a question, but Grisha answered anyway. Humans attacked my clan. 3 nights ago I ran while the warriors held them off. Your family, my mother told me to run. I do not know if she survived. The words hurt to say, carrying a weight of guilt and grief she had not yet processed. I am a coward. You are alive. Phineas's voice was firm. Your mother must have thought that mattered, and surviving when everything around you is trying to kill you takes a different kind of courage. I left them. You did what you were told. There is no shame in that. He studied her across the table. Were you injured in the attack? Minor cuts and bruises. Nothing serious. The cold was worse than anything else. Phineas nodded slowly. The hunting party, did they follow you? For 2 days. I lost them in the swamp, I think. The horses could not follow easily through the deep water. The swamp is treacherous country, even for those who know it. They may have given up, or they may be circling to find easier passage. He drummed his fingers on the table, thinking. You are not safe traveling alone, not in winter and not with hunters potentially still in the area. I will not put you in danger. I will leave as soon as I am strong enough. And go where? The question was gentle but pointed. South is all human territory from here. North would take you back toward where the attack happened. East and west are unknown. Do you have allies? Other clans who would take you in? Grisha stared into her bowl. No, my clan was small. We kept to ourselves in the northern hills. I do not even know if any others survived to scatter. The silence that fell was heavy with the weight of her isolation. She was alone in enemy territory with winter settling in hard. The odds of survival were not good. Then stay here, Phineas said, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. At least until spring. You can help with chores, earn your keep. It is safer than wandering the wilderness in winter. She looked up sharply, searching his face for any hint of deception or ulterior motive. She found only honest concern. You would let an orc stay in your home. What if the hunters come here? Then we will deal with it. But this cabin is remote, and I do not get visitors often. Most folks consider me a hermit and leave me be, he shrugged. Besides, I could use the help. Trapping season is my busiest time, and having another set of hands would make the work easier. You trust me that much, after 1 day. You have not tried to kill me yet, and you had ample opportunity while I slept. His tone was wry. Besides, I am a decent judge of character. You have honor, Grisha. I can see it in how you carry yourself in your eyes. Whatever your people may or may not have done in the past, you are not a threat to me. It was the most absurd thing anyone had ever said to her. She was an orc, member of a species humans considered monstrous. She was stronger than him, could probably overpower him in a fair fight despite his obvious competence. And yet he sat there calmly, offering her shelter through winter, trusting her. I do not understand you, she said finally. Phineas smiled, and it softened his weathered features considerably. That is fair. I do not always understand myself, but I know what feels right, and this feels right. You need help, I can provide it. Everything else is just details." Grisha found herself smiling back, small and tentative. "Then I accept, and I promise I will earn my keep. I am strong and I learn quickly. I do not doubt it. But for today, you rest and recover. Tomorrow is soon enough to start working." He collected their empty bowls and stood. "There are more furs in the chest if you need them. I am going to check my nearby traps before dark. Bar the door behind me and do not open it for anyone but me. 3 knocks, pause, 2 knocks. That will be me. You are worried the hunters might come. I am being cautious. There is a difference." He gathered his winter gear, a thick coat of layered hides and a fur hat with ear flaps. "I will be back before full dark. Rest, Grisha. You are safe here." After he left, Grisha did bar the door as instructed. Then she found herself at loose ends, too restless to sleep more but still too sore and tired for much activity. She explored the cabin, careful not to pry but curious about the man who had saved her life. The space was remarkably organized for a bachelor living alone. Furs and hides were stacked neatly, sorted by type and quality. Tools hung from pegs, each in its proper place. A small shelf held a collection of books, their spines worn from reading. Grisha could not read human script, but she recognized the care with which the books were kept. There was a wash basin on a stand, a barrel that likely held water, sacks of grain and dried goods hanging from the rafters to keep them away from mice. It was the home of someone who lived deliberately and carefully, making a life in the wilderness through skill and planning. She found herself respecting that. She also found herself wondering about Phineas himself. He was weathered but not old, probably in his early 30s. His hands showed the calluses of hard work, but his speech suggested education. The books confirmed that. Why would an educated man choose to live alone in the wilderness, trapping animals for a living? Because he preferred animals and trees to most people, he had said. She understood that sentiment all too well now. The afternoon passed slowly. Grisha found herself dozing by the fire, her body still recovering from the ordeal. She woke to the sound of 3 knocks, a pause, then 2 more. Quickly, she unbarred the door. Phineas entered with a blast of cold air and snow. Winter was tightening its grip. He carried several dead rabbits strung together, which he hung from a hook near the door. "Snowing hard now," he said, brushing snow from his shoulders. "We will be snowed in for a few days, I reckon. Good thing you are here and not out there." The thought of being trapped in the swamp during a snowstorm made Grisha shudder. She would have died, no question. "How are you feeling?" Phineas asked, stomping snow from his boots. "Better, stronger." "Good. Tomorrow, if you are up for it, I will show you around. Where things are, what needs doing. But tonight, we rest." They fell into an easy evening routine. Phineas prepared dinner while Grisha set the table, simple tasks that felt strangely domestic. They ate together, and afterward Phineas brought out a whetstone and began sharpening his knives, a meditative task he clearly found soothing. Grisha watched the fire and listened to the rhythmic scrape of blade on stone. "Can I ask you something?" she said eventually. "Of course." "Why do you live out here alone? You have education, skills. You could live in a town, have an easier life." Phineas was quiet for a long moment, focused on the knife in his hands. "I was a soldier once," he said finally. "Fought in the border wars 10 years back. Saw things, did things that made me question everything I thought I knew about honor and duty and what humans stand for." He tested the blade edge with his thumb, found it satisfactory, and set it aside. "When my service ended, I could not go back to normal life. Could not pretend that everything was fine and just. So I came out here where the only lives depending on my choices are my own and the animals I hunt for food. It is simpler, cleaner. The border wars against the orc clans, among others. But yes, orcs were involved. His gray eyes met hers across the fire. I learned in those wars that there are good and bad people on both sides of any conflict, that the world is rarely as simple as the stories we tell ourselves about heroes and monsters. Grisha absorbed that, thinking of her own people's stories about humans. She had been raised on tales of human cruelty and treachery, of villages burned and families slaughtered. All of it was true, but sitting here across from Phineas, she realized it was not the whole truth. I was taught that all humans hate us, she said softly. That they see us as animals to be hunted or enslaved, that there could never be peace between our peoples. Many humans do feel that way, Phineas admitted. Just as many orcs hate humans with equal fervor, fear and old wounds run deep on both sides. He leaned back, studying her. But you and I, we have a choice. We can keep carrying those old hatreds, or we can choose different. Right here, right now, we are just two people trying to survive winter. That is enough. It was a radical idea, almost heretical to everything Grisha had been taught. But she could not deny the simple truth of it. Here, in this remote cabin with snow falling outside, she was just Grisha and he was just Phineas. Their people's history did not have to define them. "You are a strange man, Phineas Donovan," she said, but there was warmth in her voice. He smiled. "I will take that as a compliment." The days that followed fell into a comfortable rhythm. Phineas was true to his word about teaching Grisha the routines of winter trapping. He showed her how to check trap lines without disturbing the forest's natural patterns, how to reset traps and bait them properly. He taught her which animal tracks were which, how to read the weather from the sky and the behavior of birds, how to stretch and cure pelts so they would bring good prices come spring. Grisha absorbed it all eagerly, grateful for work that kept her hands busy and her mind occupied. Physical labor helped quiet the nightmares that woke her some nights, memories of fire and screaming and her mother's face as she commanded her only daughter to run on those nights when she woke gasping. Phineas never pried. He would simply make tea and sit with her by the fire until the fear faded. His presence was steady and reassuring, asking nothing, offering silent support. She learned his routines and quirks. He was an early riser, always up before dawn to stoke the fire and start water heating. He hummed when he worked, tuneless but somehow pleasant. He read every evening before sleep, usually from a battered volume of poetry that he clearly treasured. He talked to the forest when they were out working the trap lines, greeting trees and birds like old friends. He was, she realized with some surprise, lonely. As was she. They began to talk more as the weeks passed. Phineas told her about growing up in a farming village 3 days south, about his mother who had taught him to read and his father who had taught him to track and hunt. About joining the army as a young man seeking adventure and purpose, and finding only disillusionment and scars, some visible and some not. Grisha, in turn, told him about life in the northern hills, about her clan's traditions and her mother's skill as a healer, about the harsh beauty of mountain winters and the fierce loyalty that bound her people together, about the old stories of a time before the wars, when orcs and humans had sometimes traded peacefully along the borders. "You think it could ever be like that again?" she asked one evening. They were working together to scrape clean a large elk hide Phineas had acquired from a hunter passing through the region. "Peace between our peoples." Phineas was quiet, his hands steady as he worked. "I think it would take braver souls than me," he said finally. "Someone willing to build bridges instead of walls. But possible. Yes, I have to believe it is possible, or what is the point of any of it? Winter deepened, and with it came a thaw of a different kind between the cabin's two occupants. Grisha caught herself watching Phineas more than was strictly necessary, noticing the competent strength in his hands, the kindness in his eyes when he looked at her, the rare but genuine warmth of his smile. She told herself it was simple gratitude for his kindness, nothing more. But she knew she was lying to herself. The realization hit her fully one afternoon in late winter, when Phineas returned from checking distant trap lines, with blood soaking through his coat sleeve. He had encountered a wolverine defending its territory, and had come out second best in the exchange. "It is not deep," he said, even as blood dripped onto the floor. "Just needs cleaning and binding." Grisha was already moving, pulling him to the table and helping him out of his coat and shirt. The gash on his upper arm was indeed not deep, but it was long and angry. She fetched clean water and cloth, her hands steady despite the sudden fear that had gripped her heart when she had seen the blood. "This will hurt," she warned, then began cleaning the wound with careful thoroughness. Phineas hissed through his teeth but did not pull away. His other hand gripped the table edge, knuckles white. As she worked, Grisha was intensely aware of his nearness, of the warmth of his skin under her fingers, of the trust implicit in letting her tend his injury. Her people were taught that humans were weak, soft, inferior. But Phineas was none of those things. He was strong in ways that had nothing to do with physical prowess and brave in ways that had nothing to do with battle. "Thank you," he said softly when she finished binding the wound with strips of clean cloth. "You have a healer's touch." "My mother taught me." The words came out rougher than intended, weighted with grief she still carried. Phineas's good hand came up to cover hers where it rested on his shoulder. The gesture was simple, meant to comfort, but it sent unexpected warmth racing through her. His gray eyes met hers, and for a long moment they simply looked at each other. "Grisha," he said, and there was something in his voice she had not heard before, something uncertain and wondering. She pulled her hand away, suddenly frightened by feelings she could not name. "You should rest. The wound needs time to heal properly." If he was hurt by her retreat, he did not show it. He simply nodded and moved to sit by the fire. But something had shifted between them, subtle but unmistakable. Over the following days, as Phineas's arm healed, Grisha found herself increasingly aware of him in ways that had nothing to do with gratitude or friendship. The way firelight played over his features when he read in the evening. The sound of his laughter, rare but genuine. The careful consideration he gave to everything, from checking traps to choosing words. She found herself wondering what it would be like to touch him again, to be touched by him. The thoughts were dangerous and foolish. She was an orc, he was human. Even if he harbored similar feelings, which she had no reason to believe he did, there could be no future in it. When spring came, she would need to leave, to find what remained of her people or start anew somewhere far from human lands. But her heart, it seemed, had not received that message. Her heart saw only Phineas, kind and steady and genuine, who had saved her life and asked nothing in return, who looked at her and saw a person, not a monster. The turning point came on a brutally cold night when the wind howled around the cabin like something alive and hungry. Grisha woke from another nightmare, this one vivid and terrible, her mother's screams echoing in her mind. She sat up in the bed, breathing hard, trying to quiet her racing heart. "Grisha," Phineas's voice came from his sleeping place by the fire. "Another nightmare." "Yes, I am sorry I woke you." "You did not." She heard him moving in the darkness. "I was awake. This wind makes it hard to sleep." A pause, then. "Would you like company? Sometimes bad dreams are easier when you are not alone." Every sensible part of Grisha's mind screamed that this was a terrible idea. but the part of her that was lonely and frightened and increasingly drawn to this gentle human won out. "Yes, please." She heard his footsteps, then felt the bed shift as he sat on the edge. He did not presume to get under the furs with her, simply sat close enough that she could feel his warmth and presence. "Tell me about the dream," he said softly. "Sometimes speaking it aloud robs it of power." So she did. She told him about the fire and the screaming, about her mother's face and the guilt that ate at her every day for running instead of fighting. The words poured out in the darkness, and Phineas listened without judgment, his presence a steady anchor. "You honored your mother's wish," he said when she finished. "That took courage, and you survived so that your clan's memory survives with you. That matters, Grisha. You matter." Something broke inside her chest, some dam she had been holding against the grief and fear. Before she knew what she was doing, she had reached for him and he pulled her close. She found herself cradled against his chest, his arms around her, safe and warm and accepted. She cried then, truly cried for the first time since the attack, and he held her through it all. When the storm of grief finally passed, she found herself still in his arms, his hand stroking her hair with infinite gentleness. She pulled back just enough to look at him. In the faint firelight filtering through the room, his face was soft with compassion. "Thank you," she whispered. "For everything. For saving me, for sheltering me, for seeing me. You are easy to see," he replied, his voice equally quiet. "You are brave and strong and honorable. Any fool with eyes could see it. You are not like other humans. You are not like other orcs. Or perhaps we are exactly like others of our kind, and the stories we tell ourselves about entire peoples being good or evil are the lies." His hand came up to cup her cheek, his thumb brushing away the last of her tears. "All I know is that you are here, and I am glad for it. These have been the best months I have had in years, Grisha. Your company, your help, your presence, all of it." Her breath caught. "Phineas, I need to tell you something. I need you to know." She gathered her courage. "I have feelings for you, feelings that go beyond gratitude or friendship. I know it is foolish and impossible, but I need you to know the truth of it before spring comes and I must leave." For a long moment, Phineas was utterly still. Then his eyes closed, and when they opened again, they held something fierce and tender all at once. "It is not foolish," he said roughly. "And maybe it is impossible, but I do not care. I have feelings for you too, Grisha. Have had them for weeks now. I told myself I was being a fool, that you would never look at a scarred human soldier that way, that even if you did we could never make it work. But my heart does not seem to care about logic. You have feelings for me." She could hardly believe it. "How could I not? You are fierce and funny and genuine. You work hard and laugh easily. You are beautiful in ways that have nothing to do with what species you were born into and everything to do with who you are inside." He leaned his forehead against hers. "I am completely lost to you, Grisha. Have been since the day I pulled you from that swamp." "Then I am lost to you as well," she breathed. "What do we do now?" "Now." His smile was visible even in the darkness. "Now we stop pretending this is not happening. Now we let ourselves have this for however long we can." She closed the small distance between them and kissed him, tentative and wondering. His lips were warm against hers, gentle at first, then with growing passion as she pressed closer. His arms tightened around her, and she wound her fingers into his hair, holding him close. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. Phineas rested his forehead against hers again. "Stay with me," he whispered. "Not just until spring, stay. I have nowhere else to go. That is not what I mean. Stay with me because you want to, because this, us, matters. We can figure out the rest." It was insane. It was impossible. It flew in the face of everything both their peoples believed about each other. But Grisha found herself nodding anyway, choosing the fragile hope of this connection over the certainty of loneliness. "I will stay," she said, "for as long as you will have me." "Then you will be here a very long time," Phineas replied and kissed her again. They fell asleep that night wrapped in each other's arms, the wind still howling outside but meaning nothing against the warmth they had found together. Spring came slowly to the wilderness, winter releasing its grip with reluctant grudgingness. The snow began to melt in earnest as the days grew longer and the sun climbed higher in the sky. Grisha and Phineas worked together to prepare for the change of seasons, tapping maple trees for their sweet sap, and beginning to clear the small garden plot near the cabin where Phineas grew vegetables during the warmer months. Their relationship deepened as naturally as the seasons changed. They moved around each other with easy familiarity now, comfortable in their affection. Phineas would steal kisses when they worked side by side. Grisha would rest her hand on his shoulder as she passed behind him. At night they shared the bed, wrapped in each other's warmth, finding comfort and joy in simple closeness. It was perhaps the happiest either of them had ever been, this quiet domestic contentment so far from the conflicts of their peoples. But both knew, though neither spoke of it, that the coming of spring brought complications. With the snow melting, trappers and hunters would be returning to the wilderness. Travelers would be moving along the old trails again. Their isolation could not last forever. The first test came on a warm afternoon in early spring when they heard hoofbeats approaching the cabin. Phineas and Grisha exchanged a quick look of alarm. Visitors were rare this far out and rarely brought good news. "Hide," Phineas said urgently. "In the root cellar, quickly." Grisha wanted to argue, to stand beside him against whatever came, but the fear in his eyes stopped her. He was afraid for her, not himself. Reluctantly, she descended into the small root cellar access through a trapdoor in the cabin floor. Phineas covered it with the bearskin rug and moved the table over it for good measure. Through the floorboards, she heard him open the door to greet whoever approached. Phineas Donovan. The voice was male, gruff, unfamiliar. "We are looking for a runaway orc, green-skinned girl about this tall." A pause. "We tracked her to the swamp, but the trail went cold. You trapped this territory. Have you seen anything?" Grisha's blood ran cold. The hunters still searching after all this time. "I have not seen any orcs," Phineas replied, his voice calm and steady. "But then, I do not get out much in winter. Keep to myself mostly. Mind if we look around? Actually, I do." Phineas's voice hardened. "This is my property and you have no authority here. The local magistrate does not look kindly on folks harassing tax-paying citizens." "The magistrate does not care what happens to orc filth." "Maybe not. But he cares about property rights, and right now you are on my property, uninvited and unwelcome. So unless you have some legal warrant, I suggest you move along." There was a tense silence. Grisha held her breath, her heart hammering. Above her, she heard the scrape of a chair, Phineas positioning himself between the hunters and the hidden cellar entrance. "We will be watching," the hunter said finally. "If we find out you have been harboring that creature, there will be consequences." "There is nothing to find. Good day, gentlemen." The door closed. Hoofbeats receded into the distance. Phineas waited several long minutes before moving the table and lifting the rug. "They are gone," he said, offering her a hand up. For now, Grisha emerged shaking both from fear and anger. "They will come back, and if they find me here, they will kill us both. Then they will not find you." Phineas gripped her shoulders, his gray eyes fierce. "I will not let them take you, Grisha, I swear it. You cannot fight the whole world to keep me safe. Watch me." Despite everything, she found herself smiling at his stubborn determination, but the fear remained. The hunters knew she was somewhere in this region. They would keep searching, keep questioning. Eventually, someone would see her, would know what Phineas was hiding. "We need a plan," she said. "We cannot just hope they give up." Phineas nodded slowly. "You are right. We need to either make them think you are gone or make it so they cannot touch you even if they find you. How would we do that? I am not sure yet. Let me think on it." He pulled her close, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "But we will figure something out. Together." The incident with the hunters changed things. They could no longer pretend the outside world did not exist or that their happiness existed in a vacuum. Reality had intruded, and with it came difficult questions about the future. Over the next few days, Phineas made several trips to the nearby trading post, a 2-hour walk through the forest. He returned each time with supplies but also with information, gleaned from careful conversation with the post's owner, an older man named Harold who knew everyone and everything that happened in the territory. "The hunting party has moved south," Phineas reported after his third visit. "They are telling everyone the orc they were chasing is dead, probably died in the swamp over winter. They are giving up the search." Relief flooded through Grisha. Truly, so it seems. The man leading them lost 2 horses in the swamp and another man to fever. He is cutting his losses and claiming victory. Phineas set down his pack. But there is more. Harold mentioned that the governor is implementing new policies regarding orcs in the territory. What kind of policies? Protections of a sort. Any orc who registers with a human settlement and agrees to abide by human law is to be left in peace. It is part of a larger effort to encourage more peaceful coexistence along the frontier. Grisha stared at him. "You are saying I could register? Live here openly? Possibly." "There would be conditions, certainly, and not everyone would be happy about it, but legally you would be protected." He hesitated. "There is another option, one that would provide even more protection." "What?" "Marriage. If we were married under human law, you would have all the rights of a human citizen. No one could legally take you or harm you without serious consequences." The word hung in the air between them. Marriage, binding herself to Phineas not just in their hearts but in the eyes of the law and society. It was a monumental step, one with implications neither of them could fully predict. "You would marry me?" Grisha asked softly. "Face the prejudice and hatred that would come with it," in a heartbeat. Phineas came to her, taking her hands in his. "Grisha, I love you. I should have said it before now, but I do. I love you with everything I am. If you will have me, if you want this, then I would be honored to call you my wife." Tears stung her eyes. "I love you too. Have loved you for weeks now, maybe from the first day when you warmed my hands. But marriage, Phineas, it would change everything. People would shun you. You would lose respect, lose opportunities. I chose to live alone in the wilderness because I could not stomach so-called civilized society. Losing the respect of bigots is no loss at all." His thumbs stroked over her knuckles. "The only thing that matters to me is you. Your safety, your happiness, our future together. Everything else is just noise. You are certain, absolutely certain." "I have never been more certain of anything in my life." Grisha searched his eyes and found only truth there, steady and unwavering. This man who had saved her, sheltered her, loved her, was offering her not just his protection but his name, his life, everything he had. How could she say anything but yes? "Then yes," she said, feeling tears spill over. "Yes, I will marry you, Phineas Donovan, and I will spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret it." He kissed her then, deep and thorough, pouring everything he felt into it. When they broke apart, both were smiling through tears. "When?" she asked. "Soon. The traveling magistrate is due at the trading post in 2 weeks. He has the authority to perform marriages. We can do it then, make it official." Phineas cupped her face. 2 weeks and you will be my wife. Can you believe it?" "Barely." This time last year I could not have imagined any of this. This life, feeling safe and loved." She shook her head in wonder. "It feels like a dream. If it is a dream, then I never want to wake up." The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of preparation and anticipation. Phineas made several more trips to the trading post, arranging details and acquiring supplies. Harold, the post owner, promised to stand as witness to the marriage, one of the few requirements under frontier law. Grisha found herself both excited and terrified. This would make their relationship public, end the ability to hide what she was. People would know that Phineas Donovan had married an orc. Some would be merely scandalized. Others would be hostile. But Phineas seemed unconcerned, moving forward with calm determination. "I have lived my life trying to be what others expected," he told her one evening as they sat together watching the sunset. "A dutiful son, a loyal soldier, a respectable citizen. None of it made me happy. But this with you, this is real. This is what matters. Let people think what they will." On the morning they were to travel to the trading post, Grisha dressed in her best clothes, such as they were. Phineas had acquired a new shirt from Harold, dark green wool that brought out the color of her eyes. She braided her long black hair carefully, weaving in small flowers Phineas had gathered from the early spring forest. "You are beautiful," he said when she emerged, and the reverence in his voice made her blush. The walk to the trading post took longer than usual because they stopped frequently, both nervous and excited. When they finally arrived, they found Harold had spread the word, and a small crowd had gathered out of curiosity. Grisha felt the stares as they approached, heard the whispers. She held her head high, refusing to show fear. Phineas kept her hand firmly clasped in his, a united front. The magistrate was a thin, bookish man in his 50s who regarded them both with cool curiosity but no obvious hostility. "You understand what you are asking," he said to Phineas. "Marriage to a non-human comes with certain complications." "I understand and accept them all," Phineas replied firmly. The magistrate turned to Grisha. "And you understand that, as a married woman under human law, you will be subject to human legal authority. You will have protections, but also responsibilities." "I understand," Grisha said, her voice steady. "Very well. If Harold here will stand as witness, we can proceed." The ceremony itself was brief and unadorned, the magistrate reading from a legal text rather than any religious document. But when Phineas took her hands and spoke his vows, promising to honor and cherish her for all their days, Grisha felt the weight and truth of it settle into her bones. And when she spoke her own vows in return, pledging her life and loyalty to this brave, kind human who had chosen her above all else, she meant every word with her entire heart. "By the authority vested in me by the territorial government, I declare you legally married," the magistrate said. "May your union be prosperous and peaceful." Phineas did not wait for permission. He pulled Grisha close and kissed her soundly, to scattered applause and more than a few disapproving murmurs from the crowd. Grisha did not care. She was married, protected, and loved. Everything else was secondary. Harold insisted on providing a meal to celebrate, simple but hearty fare served in the trading post's common room. A few of the locals joined them, the more open-minded or curious, and offered cautious congratulations. Most kept their distance, watching with suspicion or outright disapproval. One older woman approached as they ate, her weathered face stern. "You have made a dangerous choice," she said to Phineas. "Folks will not forget this." "Then they will have plenty of time to get used to it," Phineas replied evenly, "since I plan to spend the rest of my life with my wife." The woman snorted but did not argue further. As she walked away, Grisha leaned close to Phineas. "This will be harder than you think. People will treat you differently now. Let them. You are worth any price. He kissed her temple. We are married, Grisha. Nothing can change that now. We are family. Family. The word resonated deep in Grisha's chest, filling empty spaces she had not realized were there. She had lost her blood family, might never know if her mother survived. But she had found something new here, built it from nothing in the middle of a harsh winter. She had found home. They stayed the night at the trading post, Harold generously offering them use of a small back room. In the privacy of that simple space, they came together as husband and wife for the first time with a new depth of commitment. Their lovemaking was tender and fierce by turns, a celebration and a claiming, a promise made flesh. Afterward, wrapped in each other's arms, Grisha felt a contentment so profound it brought tears to her eyes. "I never thought I could have this," she whispered against Phineas's chest. "Never thought I could have you. Real love, acceptance, safety. It seemed like something only possible in children's stories. You deserve all of it and more." Phineas stroked her hair. "We both do. Two people who were lost and alone finding each other against all odds. If that is not something worth fighting for, then nothing is." "I will fight for it," Grisha promised. "For you, for us, for this life we are building. Whatever comes." "Whatever comes," Phineas agreed. "Together." They returned to the cabin the next day as husband and wife, and life settled into a new rhythm. Spring advanced into summer, and with it came the hard work of maintaining their homestead. They expanded the garden, hunting and trapping less as they focused on growing food. Phineas taught Grisha to fish in the nearby streams, and she proved surprisingly good at it. Occasionally, trappers or travelers would pass by, and word spread that Phineas Donovan had married an orc. Some visits were friendly, curious folks wanting to see the unusual couple for themselves. Others were hostile, thinly veiled threats wrapped in polite questions. Phineas handled all comers with the same calm courtesy, never rising to provocation, but also never backing down. Grisha learned to navigate this strange new world of being neither fully orc nor fully human, but something in between. Some nights she felt the weight of it, the isolation of being caught between worlds. But then Phineas would pull her close and remind her that they had built their own world, one where love mattered more than blood or species. Summer brought another surprise when Harold arrived one afternoon with an unexpected guest. A young orc male, perhaps 20 winters, with the exhausted look of someone who had traveled far and hard. "Found him near the post," Harold explained. "He was asking about an orc girl who had survived a clan attack. Thought you might want to speak with him." Grisha stared at the young orc, her heart suddenly pounding. "Who are you?" "My name is Thrak. I was with the northern clans when your village was attacked." He straightened despite his obvious exhaustion. "Your mother, Grenna, she survived the attack. She has been searching for you." The world seemed to tilt. "My mother is alive. Yes. She leads what remains of your clan now, about 30 survivors total. They are settled in the high valleys, rebuilding." Thrak's eyes flicked to Phineas, then back to her. "She sent scouts to search for you. I have been looking for months. Most thought you had died in the swamp. I nearly did." Grisha's mind was reeling. Her mother was alive. Her people survived. She had not lost everything that night of fire and blood. Phineas stepped close, his hand finding hers. "This is wonderful news. You thought you had lost her forever." "Yes." Grisha squeezed his hand gratefully, then addressed Thrak again. "You will take me to her, to my people." Thrak hesitated, his eyes lingering on her hand clasped with Phineas's. "You are welcome to return, of course. But I should warn you, the clan has moved deeper into the mountains, away from human territory. There is much anger toward humans after the attack. Your mother has been forced to take a hard line to keep the clan together." The implication was clear. If she returned to her people, she could not bring her human husband. She would have to choose. Grisha felt as though the ground had opened beneath her feet. Her mother, alive and leading their people. The family she thought lost forever, waiting for her. But to return to them would mean leaving Phineas, the man she loved more than anything. Two halves of herself, pulling in opposite directions. "I need to think," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I need time." "Of course." Thrak bowed slightly. "I will return to the trading post and wait. When you have decided, send word." After he left, Grisha sank onto the bench outside the cabin, feeling like she might shatter. Phineas sat beside her, silent and solid. For a long time they simply sat together, watching the summer sun move across the sky. "Tell me what you are thinking," Phineas said finally. "I am thinking that I have been given an impossible choice. My mother, my people, the last connection to who I was before. Or you, my husband, my future, the life we have built." She turned to look at him, tears streaming down her face. "How can I choose? You do not have to choose today, or even tomorrow." His arm came around her shoulders, pulling her close. "But Grisha, if you need to see your mother to reconnect with your people, I will understand. I will not stand in the way of that. You would let me go. I love you. That means I want what is best for you, even if it breaks my heart." His voice was rough with emotion. "If being with your clan is what you need, then you should go. You deserve to know your mother survived, to be part of rebuilding your people." "And us? What about us?" Phineas was quiet for a long moment. "I do not know. I cannot live among your people, not with how they feel about humans. And you cannot bring me there without causing problems. But maybe there is another way. Maybe you go for a time, reconnect, and then return. Maybe we find a way to bridge both worlds instead of choosing one." It was a fragile hope, built on maybes and uncertain futures. But it was something. "I need to see her," Grisha said slowly, working through her feelings as she spoke. "I need to know she is well, that our people survive. I need that closure, that knowledge. But Phineas, this is my home now. You are my home. I do not want to leave you." "Then do not leave forever. Go see your mother, help your people if they need it, then come back to me." He cupped her face, his gray eyes steady and sure. "I will be here waiting, for however long it takes. You would wait, even not knowing if I could return. I would wait a lifetime if needed. You are worth it." Grisha kissed him, pouring everything she felt into it, all her love and fear and gratitude. When they broke apart, her decision was made. "I will go," she said. "I will see my mother, help however I can, but I will come back, Phineas, I swear it. This is my home. You are my husband. Nothing will keep me from returning to you. I believe you." He pressed his forehead to hers. "And I will be counting the days until you come home." 3 days later, Grisha left with Thrak, heading north into the mountains. The parting was agonizing, both of them clinging to each other until the last possible moment. Phineas pressed a small carved wooden token into her hand, a bird in flight that he had made with his own hands. "So you remember the way home," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I could never forget," she promised. Then she forced herself to turn away and walk into the forest, leaving her heart behind in a cabin in the wilderness. The journey north took nearly 2 weeks, hard travel through rough country. Thrak was taciturn but not unkind, answering her questions about what had happened to the clan in the months since the attack. They had fled deep into the mountains, finding refuge in high valleys rarely visited by humans. They were surviving, but barely, and anger toward humans ran hot among the survivors. When they finally reached the camp, Grisha was struck by how small it seemed. 30 survivors from what had been a clan of nearly 100. Makeshift shelters of hide and stone dotted a small valley surrounded by towering peaks. People emerged as they approached, and Grisha recognized faces she thought she had lost forever. Then her mother appeared, and everything else faded away. Grisha was thinner than Grisha remembered, her green skin marked by new scars and her black hair streaked with more gray. But she was alive, and her dark eyes widened with shock and joy as she recognized her daughter. Grisha! It was barely a whisper. Then Grisha was running, and they met in a fierce embrace, both crying, both clinging as if afraid the other might vanish. My daughter, I thought you dead. I thought you dead as well, Grisha sobbed. I ran like you told me to, but I thought I had lost you forever. They held each other for a long time while the clan watched in respectful silence. When they finally pulled apart, Grisha gripped Grisha's shoulders, looking her up and down as if memorizing every detail. You survived. You are strong. I knew you would be strong. Grisha's smile was fierce with pride. Then her expression shifted as she noticed something. You smell different, like smoke and pine and something else, like... Her eyes narrowed, like human. There was no point in lying. Grisha met her mother's eyes steadily. I was rescued by a human trapper after I nearly drowned in the southern swamp. He took me in, kept me safe through winter, and I fell in love with him. We are married, Mother. Phineas is my husband. The silence that fell over the camp was absolute. Grisha stared at her daughter as if she had grown a second head. Then her face twisted with something between grief and fury. Married to a human. Each word was clipped and sharp. After what they did to us. After they attacked our home, killed our people, scattered our clan. You married one of them. He is not like the others. He saved my life, protected me, loved me when he had no reason to. He is a good man, Mother. There are no good humans. Grisha's voice rose, and others in the camp began to mutter agreement. They are all the same, all treacherous and cruel. And you betray your people by binding yourself to one. I have not betrayed anyone. I survived and I found happiness. Is that not what you wanted when you told me to run? I wanted you alive and loyal to your clan, not bedding our enemies. Grisha was shouting now, and a crowd had gathered. You dishonor us, dishonor yourself. You should have died rather than do this. The words struck like physical blows. Grisha felt herself flinch back, stunned by the venom in her mother's voice. Around them, the clan members were nodding, their faces hard with judgment and disgust. Mother, please. Let me explain. Let me tell you about Phineas, about what happened. You will see that he is different. I do not need to hear anything more. Grisha's voice went cold, the voice of a clan leader rather than a mother. You made your choice when you married that human. You chose him over your people. There is no place for you here now. You are banishing me. Your own daughter you banished yourself. Grisha turned away, her back rigid with finality. Go back to your human. Live among them if that is what you want, but you are no longer part of this clan, no longer my daughter. The rejection was total and absolute. Grisha looked around at the faces of people she had known her entire life and saw only coldness and anger reflected back. No one spoke in her defense. No one questioned Grisha's judgment. To them, she had committed the ultimate betrayal. Thrak stepped forward, his expression troubled. Grisha, I am sorry. I did not realize it would be like this. If you need an escort back south, no. She straightened, forcing strength into her voice even as her heart shattered. I can find my own way. Thank you for bringing me, Thrak. At least now I know the truth of where I stand. She turned and walked away from the camp, from her mother, from the last remnants of her old life. No one called her back. No one wished her well. She was alone again, just as she had been the night she fled south, except this time the loss cut even deeper because it was a choice, a rejection rather than an accident of war. But as she walked, she pulled the wooden bird from her pocket and closed her fist around it. Phineas was waiting for her. Home was waiting for her. She had been rejected by her blood family, but she had chosen family waiting in a cabin in the wilderness. A family of two, built on love and respect rather than obligation. She turned south and started walking. The journey back seemed to take forever and no time at all. Grisha walked until her feet bled, rested only when absolutely necessary, driven by the need to return to the one place where she truly belonged. The pain of her mother's rejection traveled with her, a constant ache in her chest, but so did the memory of Phineas's love, warm and steadying. It took her 18 days to reach familiar territory. She was filthy, exhausted, and half-starved when the cabin finally appeared through the trees. Evening light painted it gold, smoke rising from the chimney like a welcoming beacon. The door flew open before she reached it, and Phineas was there, his face a mixture of relief and joy and concern. "Grisha, you are back so soon. I did not think," he broke off as he took in her condition. "What happened? Are you hurt?" She walked into his arms and let herself collapse against him, drawing strength from his solid warmth. "Take me inside, please." He swept her up and carried her into the cabin, setting her gently in a chair by the fire. He brought water and food, fussing over her with gentle efficiency until she finally caught his hands. "Phineas, stop, I am fine. I just need to be home. Tell me what happened." He knelt beside her chair, his gray eyes searching hers. "Your mother, did you find her?" "I found her. She is alive, leading what remains of our clan." Grisha's voice cracked. "And she banished me when she learned I had married you, said I had betrayed my people, that I was no longer her daughter." Phineas's face went carefully blank. "I am so sorry. I know how much you hoped for a reunion." "I got one, just not the one I wanted." She touched his face, needing the connection. She could not see past her hatred, could not see that you are good and kind and worth loving. "She gave me a choice, you or them, and I chose you. I will always choose you. Grisha." His voice was rough with emotion. "I never wanted you to lose your family because of me. You did not make me lose anything. That was her choice, her prejudice, and I made my choice too." She leaned forward, resting her forehead against his. "You are my family now. This is my clan, my home. I do not need anything else." He kissed her then, fierce and claiming and tender all at once. When they broke apart, there were tears on both their faces. "I love you," Phineas said. "I will spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret that choice." "I could never regret it." "You saved me, Phineas. In every way a person can be saved." She pulled him close again. "And I am exactly where I belong." Over the following weeks, Grisha settled back into the rhythms of their life together. The pain of her mother's rejection did not disappear, but it eased with time, soothed by the constancy of Phineas's love and the peace of their shared home. Summer turned to autumn, and they prepared for another winter together. This time, there was no fear or uncertainty, only the comfortable knowledge that they would face it together. They worked side by side, gathering and preserving food, repairing the cabin, preparing for the cold months ahead. One evening in late autumn, as they sat by the fire after a day of hard work, Phineas reached for Grisha's hand. "I have been thinking," he said, "about the future, about what comes next for us." "What kind of thinking?" "The kind where I realize that this cabin, while perfect for a hermit, might be too small for a family." Grisha's heart skipped. "A family, if you want that. Children, I mean, someday." He looked almost shy, which was charming on a man of his size and experience. "I know the idea of half-human, half-orc children is complicated, but I would like to have that with you if you would want it too." "I would want that." She felt a smile spreading across her face, genuine and warm. "A family of our own, built on love instead of obligation. Children who grow up knowing that the divisions between our peoples are not insurmountable." "Yes, Phineas, I want that very much." His answering smile was brilliant. "Then we should probably add onto the cabin come spring, make more room." They laughed together, planning a future that seemed impossibly bright. Children running through the forest, teaching them to trap and track and grow food, raising them to see past prejudice to the person beneath. It was a beautiful dream, and for the first time, Grisha dared to believe it might come true. Winter arrived with the first snowfall, and with it came a surprising visitor. Grisha and Phineas were working on trap repairs inside the cabin when they heard the distinctive signal knock pattern. They exchanged puzzled looks. They were not expecting anyone, but Phineas went to answer it. A young orc woman stood in the doorway, perhaps 17 winters, with the thin, desperate look of someone who had traveled hard in difficult conditions. Her clothes were tattered and she swayed on her feet. "Please," she gasped. "My name is Kara. I heard there was an orc woman living here with a human, that she had found safety. I need help. I ran from my clan when they tried to force me into a marriage I did not want. Please, I have nowhere else to go." Grisha was already moving, catching the girl as her legs gave out. "Phineas, help me get her inside and warm. Quickly." Together, they brought Kara into the cabin and settled her by the fire. It was painfully reminiscent of that first day when Phineas had rescued Grisha from the swamp. They went through the same rituals of warming and feeding, tending to someone in desperate need. When Kara had revived enough to speak coherently, her story came tumbling out. She was from a mountain clan to the east, where tradition dictated that females married as soon as they came of age. She had been promised to a male twice her age who she found cruel and frightening. When she had protested, her father had beaten her and locked her in their dwelling. She had escaped and run, hearing rumors through traders and travelers of a mixed couple living in the southern wilderness who might offer sanctuary. "I did not know where else to turn," Kara said, tears streaming down her green cheeks. "I knew that clan law would not help me, that among our people a father's word is absolute. But I heard that you had married a human, that human law protected you. I thought maybe." She trailed off, looking between them with desperate hope. Grisha looked at Phineas and saw her own thoughts reflected in his eyes. They both knew what it meant to be outcasts, to need sanctuary when the world seemed determined to crush you. How could they turn away someone in such obvious need? "You can stay," Grisha said firmly. "As long as you need. We will figure out the legalities, find a way to protect you under human law if possible. You are safe here, Kara. No one will force you into anything against your will." The girl sobbed with relief, and Grisha held her while she cried out weeks of fear and desperation. Over Kara's head, Grisha met Phineas's eyes again, and they shared a moment of understanding. Their life together had become something larger than just the two of them. They had created a sanctuary, a place where those caught between worlds could find refuge. Over the following days, Kara settled into their household. She was young but hardworking, eager to contribute and pathetically grateful for every kindness. Grisha found herself slipping into an older sister role, teaching Kara skills and offering the kind of support she wished she had received from her own mother. Phineas made several trips to the trading post, consulting with Harold and eventually the magistrate about Kara's situation. The solution that emerged was similar to what they had done for Grisha. Kara would register under the new territorial laws as an orc seeking peaceful integration. She would be placed under the protection of Grisha and Phineas as her legal guardians until she reached her majority or chose to marry. When Phineas explained this to Kara, the young orc woman wept again, this time with joy. "You would do that for me. Take legal responsibility when I am nothing to you. You are someone in need," Phineas said simply. "That is enough." Word of their arrangement spread through the territory. Some viewed it with suspicion or outright hostility. But others, those with more open minds or compassionate hearts, saw it as an interesting experiment in the new policies of integration. And a few months later, another orc arrived seeking sanctuary, then another. By the time winter released its grip and spring returned again, their small cabin had become the center of something unexpected, a mixed community. There were 5 orcs now living on their property, each with their own story of why they could not or would not return to their clans. And there were a few humans too, drawn by curiosity or compassion, willing to work alongside orcs and see them as people rather than monsters. It was messy and complicated, this little experiment in coexistence. There were misunderstandings and prejudices on both sides that had to be worked through. There were arguments and setbacks, but there was also laughter and friendship, shared meals and collaborative work. There was hope. Grisha and Phineas found themselves at the center of it all, mediating disputes and setting an example of what cross-species cooperation could look like. Their love was the foundation upon which this small community was built, proof that the old hatreds did not have to define the future. On a warm spring evening, Grisha stood outside the expanded cabin. They had indeed built additions, multiple ones now, and looked at the small settlement they had inadvertently created. People, both human and orc, moved about their evening routines. Cooking fires sent up smoke that mingled with the scent of pine and growing things. Children played together, a mixed group who saw each other as playmates rather than enemies. Phineas came to stand beside her, slipping his arm around her waist. "Who would have thought," he said softly, "that pulling one half-frozen orc from a swamp would lead to all this?" Grisha leaned into him, smiling. "You changed my life that day, saved it quite literally, but you did more than that. You showed me that the world did not have to be the way I thought it was, that love and acceptance were possible, even across the deepest divides. You taught me the same. Taught me that I did not have to hide in the wilderness, that standing for what is right sometimes means standing in plain sight." He pressed a kiss to her temple. "We built something good here, Grisha, something important. We did, together." She turned to face him fully, taking both his hands in hers. "And we are just beginning. This community, these people finding hope and safety here, it is all because you had the courage to see an orc as worth saving. I saw you, Grisha, just you, a person in need. Everything else followed from that one simple choice to help." His gray eyes were warm with love and pride. "And I would make that choice again 1,000 times over. You are my wife, my partner, my best friend. Everything good in my life flows from you." She kissed him then, there in the gathering twilight, surrounded by the community they had built from nothing but love and stubborn hope. Around them, life continued, people going about their business with the comfortable ease of those who have found a place to belong. When they broke apart, Grisha rested her hand on her stomach, where a new life was just beginning to grow. She had not told Phineas yet, wanted to wait until she was certain. But soon, there would be a child. A symbol of everything they had overcome, everything they had built together. "I love you," she said, pouring everything she felt into those 3 simple words. "Today, tomorrow, and all the days after. You are my home, Phineas Donovan." "And you are mine," he replied, his voice thick with emotion. "Forever." The seasons turned, and their little settlement continued to grow. By the time Grisha gave birth to their first child, a healthy daughter with her mother's green skin and her father's gray eyes, the community numbered nearly 30 people. They had built more cabins, established a trading relationship with Harold's Post, and earned a cautious acceptance from most of the surrounding human settlements. Their daughter, whom they named Mara, grew up surrounded by love and acceptance. never knowing a world where her mixed heritage marked her as wrong or impossible. She was simply Mara, cherished by her parents and the extended family of humans and orcs who made up their community. 2 years later, a son followed, darker green than his sister but with the same gray eyes. They named him Pen, a shortened version of his father's name. Both children grew strong and healthy, raised on stories of how their parents had found each other against all odds and built a bridge between two warring peoples. On Mara's 5th birthday, as the community gathered to celebrate with food and music and laughter, Grisha found herself reflecting on how far they had come. 5 years ago, she had been drowning in a frozen swamp, certain she would die alone and unmourned. Now she stood surrounded by family and friends, human and orc alike, watching her daughter play with children of both species who saw no reason they should not be friends. Phineas appeared at her side, as he always seemed to when she needed him most. "Copper for your thoughts." "I was thinking about how lucky I am. How different my life could have been if you had not been checking your trap lines that day." "Fate," Phineas said with a smile, "or chance, or just dumb luck, does it matter? What matters is that you are here, alive and loved and building something that might just change the world. Do you really think we can change things, make a real difference in how our people see each other? I think we already have." He gestured at the scene before them. "Look at this." Two communities that were supposed to be enemies, living and working together in peace, raising children who will carry that lesson forward. Every person here is proof that the old hatreds are not inevitable, that we can choose different. If we can do it here, others can do it elsewhere. "Seeds, Grisha. We are planting seeds." She knew he was right. Already they had heard of other mixed settlements forming along the frontier, inspired by their example. The territorial government had expanded its integration policies, offering more protections and incentives for peaceful coexistence. It was slow work, changing hearts and minds, but it was happening. Their children would grow up in a world slightly less divided than the one their parents had known. And their children's children might know a world where the idea of humans and orcs as enemies seemed as distant and strange as the old stories of dragons and magic. As the celebration continued into the evening, with music and dancing and the kind of joy that comes from genuine community, Grisha caught Phineas's hand and pulled him close for a dance. They moved together with the easy familiarity of long practice, two people who had become one through love and choice and stubborn determination. "Thank you," she said as they swayed together under the stars, "for pulling me from that swamp, for warming my hands when I thought I might die from cold, for seeing past what I was to who I was, for loving me." "Always," Phineas replied, his arms tightening around her. "In this life and whatever comes after, I will always love you. You are my heart, Grisha, my home, my purpose, my everything." They kissed as the music swelled around them, two souls who had found each other in the wilderness and refused to let the world's prejudices tear them apart. Around them, their community celebrated, a living testament to what was possible when people chose love over hate, connection over division. And in a cabin in the wilderness, two children slept peacefully, unaware that their very existence was a quiet revolution, proof that the future did not have to look like the past. That bridges could be built, wounds could heal, and two peoples divided by generations of conflict could find common ground. It had started with one man's decision to save a drowning orc from a freezing swamp. It had continued with his choice to warm her hands and offer her shelter. And it had blossomed into something neither of them could have imagined that cold winter day. A life built on love, a family forged from unlikely circumstance, and a community that dared to believe in a better future. As the stars wheeled overhead and the music played on, Grisha and Phineas held each other close and knew that they had found something precious and rare. They had found home, not in a place but in each other. And that home had become a beacon for others seeking refuge, acceptance, and the simple freedom to be themselves. The road had not been easy. There had been pain and loss, rejection and struggle. But every hardship had been worth it for this moment, this life, this love that had defied every expectation and overcome every obstacle placed before it. The future stretched out ahead of them, full of possibility and promise. There would be challenges still to face, prejudices still to overcome. But they would face them together, hand in hand, heart to heart, building their bridge one day at a time. And it all began with a simple act of compassion on a freezing winter day, when one man looked at a drowning stranger and chose to help. That single choice had rippled outward in ways neither of them could have predicted, creating waves of change that would continue long after they were gone. But for now, in this perfect moment, they simply held each other and celebrated the life they had built together. Two people from different worlds who had created something entirely new, something beautiful and hopeful and real. They had found each other in the darkness and cold, and together they had kindled a warmth that no winter could extinguish. It was a small story in the grand scheme of things, just one couple in a vast world full of conflict and division. But to them, and to the people whose lives they had touched, it was everything. It was proof that love could transcend any boundary, that compassion could overcome any prejudice, and that two people willing to take a chance on each other could change the world. And as the night deepened and the stars blazed overhead, Grisha and Phineas Donovan held each other close and knew that they were exactly where they belonged, surrounded by the family they had chosen and the community they had built, living proof that even the deepest divides could be bridged by those brave enough to try. Their story, which had begun with a near death in a frozen swamp and a stranger's kindness, had become a legend of hope along the frontier. And though they lived simply, far from centers of power and influence, their impact rippled outward with each passing season. Every person who found refuge in their settlement carried the lesson forward when they eventually moved on. Every child raised there grew up knowing that the old hatreds were not inevitable. Years would pass, and their hair would gray, and they would watch their children grow and have children of their own. They would see their community flourish and spread, becoming a model for integration that others sought to replicate. They would face setbacks and celebrate victories, always together, always united in purpose and love. And when they were old, sitting together on the porch of their much-expanded cabin, watching the sun set over the forest where they had built their life, they would hold hands and marvel at what they had created from that single desperate moment when Phineas had hauled a drowning orc woman from a freezing swamp and warmed her cold hands with his own. It had been enough. They had been enough. And their love had changed the world, one warm hand, one kind word, one brave choice at a time.